The rule of law is only valuable if the laws are just and equitable. I heard it first. A loud boom! When Pancake and I, Pancake's my dog, reached the end of the driveway, we crossed the street. I could see across the cemetery, down the hill, through the bare trees, to the four-way intersection that we cross on the way to the park where we walk every day. A mangled pickup truck, a crushed car. Feeling a bit traumatized or re-traumatized from my own very serious car accident last summer, I nudged Pancake along past the commotion into the park. And I was really angry. I'd been waiting for that accident to happen for 5 years of walking Pancake at that park every day. Because at that four-way stop, everybody, virtually everybody, practically speaking, everybody ignores the stop signs. My rather unscientific observation, but it's probably not too far off, is that maybe 1 in 4 or 5 cars actually comes to a full, complete stop at one of those stop signs. About half roll through without ever stopping completely. Some of those are going far over the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit in the neighborhood. And maybe a quarter or just under a quarter or so just tearing through there. It's crazy. Pancake and I have almost been hit about a dozen times in the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm always watching for them. Oh, I've contemplated standing there with a homemade sign that says, "Please ignore this stop sign. Who cares if someone gets hurt or killed? You've got places to be." And now it feels more horrible seeing the ambulance go away from the site. You know, it's the most basic of signs. Stop. It's meant to protect people and property and dogs from damage or injury, demolition, or death. But it's only a valuable sign if everyone agrees to stop. The stop sign only works if we can trust each other to stop. Yeah, it's a law. You know, I looked it up. There's no jurisdiction in the United States where it is legal to roll through a stop sign. Not one. Not one. But law isn't really why we stop, those of us who stop. We stop because we have an unspoken covenant of trust and social responsibility with people we don't even know, that they will stop for us. It's enculturated into us that this is what you do as a decent person. When there's a rule that's designed to benefit all of us and keep all of us safe, you follow that rule because at the bottom, you care about other people, not just yourself. Some rules are really worth following because they really benefit all of us. I stop and I trust others to stop. And when someone breaks that trust, boom, pain beyond imagining. Trusting in common social norms and values and a common social contract is fading before our eyes in our society. It's dying. We're learning that the only thing that's keeping our society together is everyone agreeing to trust that others will play by the rules and that the rules will be fair. We're learning that the safeguards and guardrails of democracy itself are not the Constitution, are not law, are not the courts, are not elections, but rather the personal character of each and every one of us, especially those in places of financial and political and cultural power. We saw this on complete and unadulterated display on Friday, when the President of the United States tried to bully an ally like a mob boss. The United States, for all practical purposes, is now a political tool of Vladimir Putin in Russia. To his credit, and something that has made him the current undisputed, inspirational, if not actual leader of the free world, Volodymer Zelensky didn't really take the bait. He behaved like a grown-up when confronted with a petulant child. He had principles and values. He trusted them, and he held to them at great cost to himself and his country. We learned that the current president of the United States has no ethics or principles or decent values, and if anyone ever had any doubt, it is now completely gone. When our Unitarian Universalist Association moved away from our 7 and 8 principles to refocus on values centered around love, we did not do this arbitrarily. It took years of conversation. And the people working on this commission had a goal to prepare us not only for the world we're living in, but for the future. They had an idea that they would draw us deeper into community and covenant with one another. For it is our common values and our bounds we put in covenant that tie us one to another in this faith that makes this community a congregational community in the larger Unitarian Universalist Association. It's not a doctrine. They had the foresight to go forward with a set of values which give us a tool to navigate a world in which power is increasingly concentrated in fewer and fewer hands, increasingly less democratic, and increasingly does not care about people. It only cares about power and profit. It is around our deepest sacred values that we shape congregational community and any secular community that we're a part of. And it is what will give us strength and guiding light through our current political and cultural crisis. The deep values we hold in the heart that remind us who we are and what is right and wrong. Even with the American social contract ripping apart, it's had to withstand the 10 years the hard right wing has been undermining by lying without restraint. We're going to build communities that will learn how to resist this. Resist the lying, resist the manipulation. The goal of the lying was not to get people to believe lies. The goal of the lying is to lie so often and so much that people don't know what to believe about anything. It's a tactic. It's done on purpose. And if you feel like you've been on the receiving end of a fire hose with all the horrible stuff coming out of the administration, you have been. It's a tactic. It's been done to overwhelm you so you don't think clearly, and without thinking clearly, you can't act clearly. Unplug, don't doom scroll. There's stuff to do. Your values will guide us. We're going to do things. But don't get caught. Remember, when you're overwhelmed, there's a reason we breathe every Sunday. And sit for a minute. Breathe. 3 deep breaths can reset your physiology. Science. Remind yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed. They want you to feel overwhelmed. Stop. Taking care of yourself right now is an act of resistance. All of us can't do everything. All of us can do something. Trust that everyone else is going to do their part. Don't be overwhelmed. You have love at the center of a community that will gather around it and will find ways through to thrive. We have a barrage of things coming at us right now. It's easy to get lost So hold love as a beacon, a compass. How do I know what love requires? Love takes the side of people in poverty, people who are hungry, people who are tired and ill. Love takes the side of people who are left out and left behind and persecuted and oppressed. Go where those things are happening. That's where love is. That's where you'll know the center is forming and fighting back. It is love, not law, by which we will measure our guidelines going forward. It is by trusting in the power of love, even more than the rule of law, that will anchor us and guide our actions going forward. I wish we really could trust the rule of law, but the rule of law is only valuable if the laws are just and equitable. As Dr. King told us, an unjust law is no law at all. And get ready, because there's a lot of unjust laws coming down the road soon. They've already started. Our nation's history has been an ongoing campaign to make rules fair and equitable and compassionate. And now we have our own government actively trying to do all that work over hundreds of years. We were far from perfect, but undoing what progress we've made is beyond criminal into unethical and evil. On Friday, not only did the President of the United States behave like a petulant child, but the state of Iowa removed transgender people from its non-discrimination laws. It is now perfectly legal to treat transgender people in Iowa as less than human. Perfectly legal. Law is only the lowest common denominator of morality. And using the law to cover unethical and immoral behavior is perhaps the champion of all atrocities. Montesquieu said in his work, The Spirit of Laws, there is no greater tyranny than that which is perpetrated under the shield of law in the name of justice. And we got to prepare for a steady diet of this right now. But love can't be defeated here. For love is a guideline in which we can trust, that will bind us to each other, bind us to people of good heart, good faith, and goodwill, and help us rise against whatever comes at us. You know, the people who committed genocide in World War II were obeying the law. The people who hid Anne Frank and her family were breaking the law. People in Iowa who discriminate against transgender people are now obeying the law. And parents providing gender-affirming care for their own children are breaking the law. There's something foul happening. And the time has come for us again as people of good faith and goodwill and good conscience, people of love, to decide what laws are just and unjust, whether or not the law upholds love, makes it just or unjust. The trustworthiness of law is in direct proportion to how well it takes the side of love, how well it manifests and supports justice and fairness and equity and interdependence and generosity and inclusion. If you recognize those words, they're jet pig. What makes a law follow love is how transformable it is whenever it strays from those values so it can reshape itself and return to love. In times of crisis and trauma, communities have a choice. People can band together and form communities of care and mutual aid and assistance, even if it means breaking the law. Or they can isolate, protect what's theirs, look out for only themselves, hoard resources, and fall into violence and chaos. The choice they make is largely dependent upon what they put their faith, their trust in, as their core values. Those who recognize the humanity of others and value fair play and inclusion and equity and generosity create communities of care and protect each other and survive and build a better world on the other side. Those who value getting what they can, taking care of themselves, tend towards cruelty and violence and chaos. Even when we feel we're losing trust in a lot of things, we can turn to each other in community, in covenant, center our values, focus on love, and pledge our trust and commitment to one another more deeply. There are lots of examples of this, but I'm going to share one from a place called Le Chambon sur Lignon in France from World War II. A lot of the data comes from the online Holocaust encyclopedia, but you can find the information, the facts here all over the place. The deportation of Jews began in France in 1942 when Pastor André Trocmé of the Protestant Reformed Church in the village of Le Chambon sur Lignon urged his congregants to work together to shelter any Jewish person who asked. The town was soon filled with hundreds and hundreds of Jewish people. With the help of the townspeople, some from the village itself, others from the surrounding countryside, the Jews were taken on dangerous treks to the Swiss border. According to one estimate, over 5,000 Jews passed through Le Chambon and the surrounding villages on their way to freedom. The people acted on their conviction that it was their duty, because of their faith, to help their neighbor in need. It was their human duty to be trustworthy, to be allies that could be trusted. Not only did the people of Le Chambon hide the Jews from the Nazis, they refused to sign pledges of loyalty, all of them. Not one, all of them. They refused to ring church bells. They refused to do anything the Nazis asked through the Vichy government. As a whole, as a unit, the villagers refused to buy into any of the Nazis' ideas about who was and wasn't good enough to be a person. And they acted accordingly. They lived their faith. They took the side of love, even though doing all of that was not only illegal, but put their own lives in jeopardy. When the authorities demanded Pastor Trocmé stop assisting Jews, he said, "I don't know what a Jew is. I only know human beings." Eventually, he was arrested. Eventually, they released him, though. While he was arrested, his wife and assistant pastor continued the organizing. The resistance in the village continued. It wasn't about a leader. The Nazis couldn't understand this. To them, you take away the power of the leader, the one in charge, it falls apart. That's where love has a power. It's collective. It's not dependent on one of us, but all of us. It was the community and covenanted mission that stood strong. And Le Chambon sur Lignon is one of the only communities or places, instead of people, that is called righteous among the nations by Yad Vashem. Altogether, it took more than a village. About 25,000 people, they think, helped in this effort through the years of the war. It took all of them. Had one person proved untrustworthy, had one person broken the covenant of love, had one person betrayed them, it would have all come crashing horribly down. But they did it. In a recent essay, Sean Hamilton writes of German-born Jewish political theorist Hannah Arendt and how she explained the German political term coordination, or getting in line. Arendt said, the problem was not that what our enemies did, but what our friends did. Friends coordinated. They got in line. So if you've ever asked how did Hitler succeed? Hamilton writes, well, they conceded premises to faulty arguments. They rejected facts. They rejected maybe not the propaganda, but they were bought in by the impressions of the propaganda. The new paradigm of authoritarianism was so disorienting that they couldn't see it for what it was, let alone confront it. Don't be overwhelmed. We know what it is. People rejected the uglier aspects of Nazism, but gave ground in many ways that ultimately made it successful. They conceded premises to a faulty argument. One of the reasons the people of Le Chambon did not get in line is because once they were the persecuted people. These were Protestant churches. They were Huguenots. And there was a time when their Catholic neighbors rounded them up and killed them. They knew what it was like. And generations later, They remembered. They were also successful because they constantly reminded each other of their core values. Do unto others, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, love your neighbor. Only see human beings. Another reason they were so successful is the Nazis thought they'd stop them by arresting the leader. They arrest Pastor Trocme, they figured it all died down. It got better. They let him go, still kept going. They didn't understand that leaders are overrated. Working for the common good is best done in common, together, as a community, grounded in shared values, held together by love. Those who worship power and control always assume that power will rest in a person. It doesn't. Those who value community realize power lies in our connection and interdependence as a community of care and support. So as fascists are once again trying to make a certain type of people illegal, this morning after our service and coffee and cake, we return to organizing our Social Action Council, and we'll decide how we'll coordinate against coordination. How we'll get ourselves in line against getting in line. How we'll be trustworthy allies to all those who are being persecuted, to all those who just knock on our door seeking help. When a faith community centers its most positive values, it becomes a near unstoppable force for good in the world. Coordinating and getting in line are starting to happen. It's starting to normalize. When you see it, say no and don't. But something else is also starting to happen. Local communities are starting to organize to take care of each other, to make sure there is mutual aid. Defenders of human rights and inclusion and equity are transforming their work to meet the moment. The immigrant, the refugee, the undocumented, transgender, Black, brown, Muslim, Jew, it doesn't matter. We know only human beings. We trust there are only human beings. Diverse, magnificent, beautiful, lovable human beings. Check out my website and blog at tonylorenzen.com for even more resources that will open your mind, touch your heart, and inspire your spirit.